Hi there. My name is David Batsoffen and I host a travel blog called Travel and Things. At the moment, I'm doing a series called In Conversation With. And this evening, I'm in conversation with a man that many of you may remember from a particular advert. Roland Gaspar, how are you doing?
Well. I'm privileged to be on the video blog with an award-winning writer, photographer,
Oh,
travel
stop it.
blogger.
Stop it.
I'm with the celeb, yeah.
Uh, but
And
that's not
you
all.
let me borrow your mug. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Let everyone see that you lent it to me. I haven't given it back yet.
Cheers. We'll drink to that. It has been a while. I think the last time you and I were in physical contact. Oh, hang on, let me rephrase that. The last time you and I worked
It wasn't
together.
a fist fight,
It
was it?
wasn't. It was close though, because it was wrestling in Port Elizabeth, if you remember correctly,
It was.
on the beach
Yeah.
of all places.
And this wrestling on the beach, just to clarify for anyone who's watching, was not between David and I.
No.
It was actual professional wrestling. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was actually, you mentioned that people may remember me from the ad, but I had a brief a stint on SABC2 on the WWP Thunderstrike series as the ring announcer. I don't know if you recall from.
I do indeed.
It was called. It was called the. I used to welcome them because the alleged venue of this huge rumble that happened was the basement in the Dome of Doom. So I used to descend at the beginning of the episode in this elevator, and then I'd run out with a microphone and go, "Welcome to the basement at the Dome of Doom, where tonight," and then, obviously all mayhem would go from there. So yeah.
Funny.
From the Dome of Doom to the beach in PE where they had Wrestle Monster. That's what it was called. Wrestle Monster.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody about that series where South Africa fought India, and
Yes.
that was shot out in Midrand somewhere in a venue that wasn't designed for an audience. So it got incredibly hot because there was no aircon. One particular wrestler we killed off in the ring. He got really badly injured. He was taken out on a stretcher, and I had to then go back in and announce that he had died on his way to hospital. And the audience, I was in tears. Roland, I was such a good actor. I was in tears. The audience was sobbing and screaming. And then 2 weeks later, we brought him back as a masked wrestler, and nobody recognized him.
Well, listen, that's it's a whole nother art form. It's a whole nother art form.
When I'm up in the early hours of the morning, when my cat wakes me at like 3, then I watch WWE because there is a whole dedicated channel. But at the moment, they can't fight with an audience. So they're fighting with like 6 people behind plastic, and everybody's wearing masks. And they're doing their damnedest to put on a show for the cameras. But there's no audience feedback. And from when you MC, that's what makes those wrestling matches, because otherwise it's just, it's your turn, and then if there isn't a crowd, then the people can hear what the wrestlers are saying to each other. It's like, no, you meant it. Use your left hand, that type of thing.
Well, I don't know if I would say that. It's real. It happens. It's true. They wrestle. They fight. They put their bodies on the line. Don't make me say anything else. Don't make me say anything else. But I'll tell you one thing. You talk about performing without an audience. One of my other hats is as a comedian. And who'd have thought there would be a time in history where stand-up comedy, live comedy, would be one of the most dangerous forms of entertainment in the world physically. I mean, if you're laughing, coughing, sputtering, it's bizarre. So, yeah. But comedy is not just literally dangerous anymore.
I've been chatting to a fair amount of South African comedians about this, and some people have gotten very excited about doing comedy to the camera, and others have gone, no, that's not how we work, because you feed off. We both know that you feed off the audience, and if you go sort of, and the rabbi said, bada bing, and there's nothing, You sort of go, thank you and good night. And you can't do that if you're alone, just you and your camera.
Well, yeah, it's like the difference between, I don't know, say Tai Chi and surfing. You know, the one you can do for the form, and if someone's recording you, and it's like beautiful and it's artful, and you know you've given this, you know, excellent performance, you can be, it's really great. But with you and your surfboard and nothing else is not the same thing. And I feel like in terms of comedy or live performance anyway, whatever it is, like you said, wrestling, whatever, I feel it's like surfing. There's this wave of energy that sort of gets exchanged, and you kind of surf along that wave. And in the instances where nowadays there's I mean, even up to sport or whatever that's been happening without audience sort of involvement, that element is lost. So it's like windsurfing anywhere other than PE, you know, or Cape Town. Winds can blow there too. Sheesh, I'll tell you. So,
But were you making a living is the wrong expression. Are there enough comedy clubs in Port Elizabeth to warrant doing stand-up on a regular basis?
It's been an interesting little confluence. PE is a strange town in terms of comedy. We managed to run for 3 years. We ran an improv show, a weekly improv show. For about a year, a friend of mine ran a monthly stand-up gig. We've had times when the casino has run, you know, regular comedy gigs, but to establish a sort of circuit has been tremendously difficult. And you know, like regular, you know, the sort of, hey, well, let's go out just randomly on a weeknight and go and watch some comedy is not big here, you know, and for some reason that hasn't really sort of took, like various people have tried and we've tried to establish it, but it hasn't. But when comedians from here who've gone to Cape Town or Joburg or whatever and really sort of built up their career come back, man, they support massively. So we're great lovers of comedy, but we're the culture of that sort of weekly, let's head out and, you know, and just go to a club and enjoy it, and that sustaining thing isn't big yet. But we managed to do, we called it Whose Line PE. We figured we'd sort of give it the platter. It's improv. We did that for 3 years and hoped that the guys from Drew Carey and the guys wouldn't ever sue us. We hoped, look, we kind of silently hoped that our improv got so popular that we did show up on the international radar, but alas.
Where did you do it?
We did it in, there's a great place in PE called the Music Kitchen, where it's a sort of a music venue that's set up, where everyone that comes through town, the great musos, you know, right the way through, whoever, you know, Parlotones, Dan Poklansky, name someone, you know, whoever, Freshly Ground, whoever would come through town, would do. It's a fairly intimate, 100, 150, 200 people in the inside of the venue, and then when they have DJs and stuff, it's big. Or we did it at the Grand Hotel, which is, at one stage we moved in there, sort of home venue, and that's like over 100 years old. So it's right across the road from the Opera House. And then we moved to another place on the other side of town. So we had like a sort of, the best combination that worked for audiences was kind of like bar come venue, live music kind of thing.
What about the Phoenix Hotel? You could have used that, surely. Was it too small?
Oh, I think that it was too small, but legend, wow.
Legend. That's my stomping ground. That's my stomping ground. Yeah. Port Elizabeth. Port Elizabeth is my hometown. I grew up there.
Oh, of course, yeah. You see, no wonder I gave you the big intro. This is your hometown interview.
It is indeed. We can swing this around. When you eventually get this, you can pretend it's your show and you're interviewing me.
I'm gonna, once you post this, I think I should I'm gonna like list it as that. That's what I'm gonna do. But I mean, so you know that, do you know that street has been renamed? It was White's Road.
Yes.
It's now been renamed Winston and Shauna, and the one in front of it, in front of the Opera House, is John Carney. And I had the privilege recently interviewing him. He just did a show in London.
Dr. J.
Coincidentally, very interesting, Kunene and the King. And it's this interesting conversation between two older gentlemen about what's happened in South Africa over the last quarter of a century. And how, you know, they're dealing with it. And bang, suddenly, I mean, the timing couldn't be better. He's in the UK as the whole racial tension and everything ramps up. And here's John Carney, I don't know, presciently knowing that this is a subject that needs to be addressed, and he's already got a show that's addressing these
exactly that
things. Yeah, it's just so absolutely amazing. But anyway, why I mention him is because he mentions at one stage Ethel Fugard, Winston and Shauna, and himself chatting about the Opera House in PE, going, one day is one day. We're not allowed in there right now, but one day we will do shows in that venue. And not only did that happen, they're all 3 Tony Award winners.
Exactly.
And the streets that surround the Opera House are named after the 3 of them who weren't allowed in there. So, I mean, if you follow your dreams, kids.
Yeah, because when they sort of back in the day, in the early 60s, when Athol started off his player group, it wasn't a mixed venue.
No.
They performed down there somewhere, and I can't remember where. There was a hall there somewhere. And my parents, because we were all involved in theater, myself, my sister, and my folks, they were always invited. We were too young to go. But they were scared because the security police used to stand outside and take photographs. And then years later, one of my second real interview on radio was Athol. And I had to ask him the question, why did you leave South Africa? Expecting the whole political slant to it. And he went, David, I wanted to earn real money so I could fish. Simple as that. and Dr. J, Dr. J, I've interviewed on several occasions, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful guy. He really is.
What a gent. What an absolute gent.
He is, yeah.
Inspiration. So fishing turns out to be a big inspiration for everybody. Eh? Well, I mean, I'm not a fisherman, but the folks who are, man.
Well, I've never understood fishing. I fished once. My first cast, I caught a 4-kilogram catfish. And for the rest of the day, I caught nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Listen, if the first experience you ever had was having to look face to face with a 4-kilo catfish, I don't blame you for giving it up,
Listen, I've dated women that are uglier than that. which leads me to I promised I wouldn't go there. We don't know who's watching this video.
Well, no, listen, I'll tell you, I've looked in the mirror on mornings and wondered myself about myself.
Well, Roland, where you are now, a question that I've been asking all my guests is, tell me about Roland in matric. What were you like, and what plans did you have for your life?
So Roland in matric was a very noble, well-behaved, follow the rules, don't drink, don't smoke, don't swear, don't date. Well, I think I was interested in someone, but it hadn't happened yet. I don't know. So I was it was my noble days. It was.
Okay. Did you have a lance and a horse though, so that you could go out on the crusades?
I did though. Funny enough, not a lance and a horse, a crusade. I really had this thing where I kind of felt like I wanted to somehow do something that would I don't know, that would help people. But I grew up in Springs. I was born in Springs, so it's.
Is that the punchline?
In the 80s, yeah, exactly. There was, it was. I mean, there's a lot of great people that come from there, so you can't knock that. But I'm just saying, it wasn't really the sort of international hub for inspirational speakers or initiators of great social change movements or whatever. But I wanted to do something that meant something and made a difference in people's lives, etc. At that stage, I thought the sort of religious milieu was the only way you could do it. You know what I mean? So I kind of I did a lot of study in that direction and so forth. I thought maybe, and then the first job I got. Or sort of not the first job. First job I was as a clothing salesman, so that was quite interesting. Which was it's never shown up in my style since then. So now, I'm doing a number for a good stylist, because don't look at my photos. It doesn't come from those days. I used to obviously sell the good stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then from there, I went into teaching maths, would you believe it? After failing with 22% in standard 9, I eventually rewrote until I eventually got a D for matric maths on higher grades. So, and then I went to work for master. No, I went to master maths as a tutor for younger kids, and it turns out I had a skill for teaching more than for maths.
Okay.
So as long as the maths is not too complex, the teaching skill came in. Anyway, long story short, I ended up working in an accounting firm. I'm sitting in the accounting firm. I'm doing my articles. I'm studying BCompt, if you remember, with UNISA. So I'm studying industrial psych, which was very useful later on, and in terms of motivational speaking, which sort of came later. I then also was I was studying labor law, which is coming useful. Good to know that stuff. They don't give you that option in high school. If I'd have taken that in standard 8, it would be a lot of heartache later. But things like this. Anyway, long story short, we're sitting in the accounting office. I've just come out of matric. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to create a base. They say as an actor or a speaker or whatever, you must actually always have something to fall back on, Always have something to fall back on. So I was studying my accounting. I got this job with this old accounting firm, 2 partners. They still had those old ledgers. They had the pieces of wood, and they had a little thing that you turn.
Yeah.
Well, turns out I'm talking to an old fellow. Anyway. So it gives our age away, doesn't it? Anyway, so I started working. I told you the whole long story to say, out of that, I'm sitting in the office one day. The guy next to me is obsessed with radio. He says to me, there's this advert for a course. You can go and do this commercial broadcasting course in Joburg with this little station that's just started called Solid Gold FM with Tony Sanderson.
I remember
and Cal Kennedy was with him. Cal Kennedy. He is at that stage he was doing Good Morning South Africa, I think. GMSA. Remember Good Morning South Africa? So Cal and Tony had started this thing, and he says, "I'll tell you what, come with me. I'm too nervous to go on my own. Would you come with me?" So we do it together. And we go every Saturday for 6 weeks. We went and did this course. It was like 8 hours a day. It was quite intensive, I'll tell you. Anyway, so off we go to do this. 6 or 8 weeks later, or however much it was, he comes back and absolutely hates it. Hates everything about it. Hates the pressure, hates the prep, hates everything. I love it. To this day, he is a successful, wealthy accountant, and I am a radio/entertainment guy, who is at any given moment, in between something great. You've got your gig, and you're on. There's going to be some other gig, but at the moment, I'm in commercial radio, so I suppose it worked out. So yeah.
But it's interesting.
So from accidental career, boom,
that's what seems to happen. I mean, I was the same. My parents also. You have to have a job to fall back on, so I became an electrician, which they can never take away from me. I can always electrish if I really want to. And then years later, when I'd gone through the whole theater and radio and everything, I was working with Peter Dirk Ace, bless the man, because he was my light bulb moment. Because he said to me, "Tell me your backstory." And I told him, and job to fall back on. And he said, "No, wait there, stop there. Why do you have to have a job to fall back on? Why can't you have a job that you fall forward into?" And that's where my writing career started, because I'd been tossing it around, but I was uncertain, and it was just that, come to the edge type of thing. We'll push, and it was him that pushed.
Yeah. Amazing. Isn't it incredible? These salient points in your life,
Yeah, and this is it. I mean, in the creative industry that we find ourselves, I mean, radio is not the most stable of places. You're virtually at the mercy of people you don't know, because if your audience doesn't like you, that's your job gone. Thank you, very please, and you're out the door type of thing.
Commercial radio, some overseas conglomerate could buy out the whole group. And then decide they're going to change it all to, I don't know, reggae music. And if you don't have dreadlocks, you're out. It has nothing to do with you.
No. So, in America, the big thing there was they, at one particular stage in the early to mid 90s, they were changing radio stations to country music literally overnight. There'll be a classical music station on Monday morning, and on Tuesday they were country. It was as simple as that. So either you shipped up, or you shaped up, or you shipped out. It was as simple as that.
Yeah.
But actually, talking talking about the States, I want to segue into your last overseas trip before the dreaded disease hit. You went to the USA, yes. I seem to remember.
Yeah, so in September of last year, we went across to go and visit my daughter. She works in the States, so she works on it's called an H-2B visa, where you go and you work for a 6-month period on contract to a specific business. And she works with these. There's a company called Workaway International, and they source a lot of young people from South Africa, from Ireland, Romania, places like this, and they get them all to these fancy country clubs and things, and they train them. But they want, it's almost like, how shall I put it? It's not like your average waiter, where you go to a restaurant and they call it bidding. You're not allowed to go to a table and bid and go, who's having the steak, who's having the chips, who's having the there's all this, and it's this highly cerebral kind of thing where they train them, and the members of these fancy country clubs, you have to know them by name. You go to the table and you go, oh, Mr. Cohen, here's your steak. The chef was standing on one leg, did it for exactly 64 seconds with hollandaise sauce from the traditional. You got to know everything. You got to know every drink. Wow. So it's literally write a test. But having said all of that, so she messages me at one stage from there, and she's like, there's this old guy who came for lunch, and everyone's sort of making a fuss of him. And I said, oh, who's that? And she said, oh, no, they say he's Lord Alan Sugar. Is he like important or something? I said, yeah, it's not, And then she said, oh, one of the members of the birthday party, and they invited a music group. It was Train that came and played here. I said, oh, that's lovely. She said, oh, and we had an actor over for lunch the other day. I said, oh, which one? Have I seen, would I know his movies? She said, yeah, Mark Wahlberg. So I'm like, wow.
I'm amazed at Mark.
And then, yeah, you look at these waiters. Obviously, now this is not your average little sort of, shack on the corner somewhere on a little, Caribbean island. So, they are under pressure. They work hard. But the hourly rates that they sort of build up in dollar terms is not a lot for the Americans, but with the current exchange rates, I'm glad that, she's got poor family in Africa, that she can.
Is she going to be choosing your old age home?
Well, at the current exchange rate, yeah, she'll hardly feel it. But anyway, yeah, so we went over to visit her. It was really great because as a part of it, you fly in via New York. Mm-hmm. So she works in Florida for the 6 months, and then some of the time they'll extend their visa for a different 6-month period, and then she goes up to Maine, which was absolutely incredible. She worked at a place called Chebeague Island Inn, and Chebeague Island is one of the so-called calendar islands, because originally they thought off the coast of Maine. They thought there were 365 little islands there. Turns out there were, I think, 200 odd or something. Okay. But anyway, so Chebeague, one of these islands, totally off the mainland. She worked in this beautiful old inn, which we got to go and visit there. I went across, and the thing is, she made friends because it's one of the only places on the island where there's a bar. The Lobstermen come and they have drinks there. And these guys are the most colorful characters ever, because they're these grizzly old guys with their New England accents, don't give me a hat attack, where'd you park your car, But the stories, if you ask them to talk, like everyone on the island's already heard their stories, so they're like, oh boy. But then when I sit there and go, tell me stuff, man, the stories I heard was just amazing. And the amount of lobster I got to eat, because they were like, I like this guy. Give him some lobster. So back all lobstered out. So that was an amazing little piece of history as well. Just seeing the Chebeague Island there. I got a chance to go on Casco Bay out there with the Lobstermen, and there's this little floating platform called the Smack, which is the boat where they come and they deliver their lobsters. It's kind of like the dealer, they'll like come deliver their lobsters. They'll write it up in the book. Like the co-op, floating co-op.
We've all watched Deadliest Catch. We know about those guys.
And they give them their bait and everything. And so I actually got to do a day in the life of, which is like, as a tourist you wouldn't usually do, but now because she'd known them, we got to do that. So that was kind of cool. And then went to New York. We on the way back spent a couple of days there, and that was cool. And in terms of travel, this is one of the things which I like about the way you approach travel, is that every place has not the standard thing, not the automatic thing. but there's something else that you can look for. You can have the local experience. You can, reading up makes a difference. Talking to the local people makes a difference. You don't just go and say, what's the obvious thing? Let me do the obvious thing. You know?
And you also learn very quickly about long blocks and short blocks.
Yes. I actually did this. Yes. Okay. So one of the things I do, which is interesting, is every year there's a like a Comic-Con type of thing here in PE called Connect. And I've emceed for them for the last couple of years, and I've sort of set the bar quite high because I've done it in cosplay every year, and each year I try and so the first year I did Nacho Libre. Now, if you remember me from my wrestling days, and if you know, I'm wearing black because it's slimming, but my particular figure, as a homage to Jack Black, let's just say it worked. Yeah. So everyone absolutely loved it. I actually had the costume made and everything, and I had the wig and the works, and I you know, it was beautiful. And then the next year I went as the Genie from at that stage it was the Robin Williams movie, you know, the animated movie, and Will Smith did it. And I actually got them to paint me in like professional level makeup, and they put a liquid latex hair, you know, like paint, like they stuck hair on with liquid latex. It was great to have hair again. I haven't had that since the 90s. And and they painted me blue, but it was this professional blue this professional makeup, Kryolan. And so it like absorbs the light and stuff. So it actually made me look like a cartoon character because of that matte effect. So now I've set myself up. What am I going to do for year 3? So in September, I'm running around New York, and I've only got a certain amount of hours in which to do it. And I'm running around from costume shop to costume shop because my ambition was to do Thanos from the Avengers Endgame. So I'd seen that they had the gauntlet, they had the costume and everything, and I was running around, and I looked on the little map, and it's look, just north 4 blocks.
3 days later, Roland is still trudging through New York.
There's another costume place. just to the east. There's another just a couple of blocks over that way. Now you know why time on the trains and stuff. Yeah, so that was interesting. But one of the things we ended up doing the Thanos thing, by the way, which was fabulous. Got painted purple, and they built me a big jaw and everything. So it actually worked out in the end. It was great. So, but having said that, back to the travel side of it. So one of the things, I went on a walking tour with all to the Marvel sites where they filmed the movies. Which is fascinating when you get a guide who really can what's the word, like transmit the energy of the place, not just the fact about the place. So I was privileged to get a couple of those on those. And we went to like Grand Central Station, where you look up at Tony Stark's building. Okay, you don't. You look up at the Midlife building, which was covered by the green screen work. But still, you're standing there in the movie. No? But my favorite moment of all was at the, it's officially called the Firehouse Hook and Ladder Company number 8.
Right.
That is the fire station where they filmed the original Ghostbusters. And on the pavement, just outside, the firemen or some of the employees who had worked there had painted the little Ghostbusters logo on the pavement. It's not an officially endorsed logo. It's not a remaining prop from the movie. It's just someone who worked there who said, we want to remember that this is the place. And finding that little hand-painted logo on the pavement in New York was like this incredible little moment of, it's like a treasure hunt, you know? And so just in terms of travel, I just, that was one of the things that was really special about it, was finding those little places. I mean, I even went to the front of the hotel. I looked it up and everything in the financial district where John Wick, you know, John Wick.
Yes.
We should tell him about the virus thing. We should tell him, send him off to the original virus.
Yes, exactly.
See what happens there.
Yeah, but they as long as the virus attacks his dog, because that's what set it all off. If you remember,
we all know that it doesn't matter how many guys die in the movie, as long as the dog survives.
Exactly.
Emotions are intact.
I remember writing a review for one movie. The movie was Marley and Me, and I started the review saying, I was criticized quite heavily by certain family members. I started my review by saying, from the moment you buy your popcorn, you know the dog is going to die. Because it wasn't a spoiler. You knew, because that was the premise of the movie. The dog is going to die. It's like a Reader's Digest. It just takes 14 pages, and then when you get to go to page 76, somebody's torn page 76 out, and you don't know how it ends. The otter went off without a backward glance, and you don't know how it finished. Otter could have got shot on the way to the river, could have come back with family members. Who knows?
It's true. Unexpected. So yeah, but these kind of places, it was great to be able to do that. And I mean, so in terms of travel, I just wanted to, one other thing that I wanted to mention though, is that although there were all these special experiences in the overseas travel, which we're all now sort of suspended from doing, we're all feeling very heartsore about, not being able to visit, Paris, Milan, New York, whatever. But the other great travel experience I had recently was last weekend in your hometown. You know Lady Slipper?
Yes, of course.
If you were in Israel, you'd call that a mountain. You know what I
mean? If you were in Welkom, you'd call it a mountain. You don't have to go to Israel.
Exactly. No, but I had the privilege of going there years and years ago, and then they say this is the Mount of Olives, and we're going, that's hardly a copy where we come from. All the mountains I read about, they're not very mountainy, So anyway, this one was mountainy enough though. But my point is, I got a chance. A friend of mine said, would you come, do you want to come with us? I've got the kids with me this weekend and whatever. I want to get out in the open air and let's just go for a hike up Lady Slipper. So I'm thinking, that sounds like a good idea. What I might have failed to mention is that this gentleman's name is Chris Bright. He runs this thing called the PE Submission Fighting Academy, which is one of they're a very well-known training ground for some of the best grapplers in the EFC.
Right.
We started with wrestling. Yeah. You go to extreme fighting. Chris fought in EFC 1, okay? And he's had his fighters, throughout, and he's very well known for grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, etc. And so there are elite athletes who train with Chris and who may not have been in the gym for a couple of months now, but are still fairly fit individuals.
And then there's Roland.
And when he says a couple of us are going up the mountain, you get there, and then there's you, who's been very proud of your 6 to 9 a.m. window of training when you've been walking your 5K circuit around the block.
Yeah.
And you are now faced with, I kid you not, 585 meters of elevation.
Yeah.
Over what my little watch called a 12 kilometer circuit. Okay, I did get lost in the end, so there's a couple that could have been added. But having said that, like 12 Ks around, with like half a kilometer of elevation in the air, I tell you, it wasn't quite the stroll that I thought it would be. But PE. If you get up there and you have a look around the bay and you can see all the way from Jeffries and you can see the wind farms now, you can see all the way around to the other side to the absolute vista, which is Uitenhage,
Yeah. Listen, don't knock it. I worked in Uitenhage for 6 months. I lived in Uitenhage.
Wow. You know the Hague.
I know the Hague. And so I boarded with friends so that I could stay there Monday to Friday and then catch the train home. It was in the days before I had a motor car or a license. So I know that area well. But you brought up something, Roland, that I think is very important in this rather strange lockdown time that we find ourselves in. At the moment, I'm a non-traveling travel writer. That's sure. when people say, "What do you do?" That's what I am. But you can travel in your own province, and now is a good opportunity to find, like you said with New York, finding the Ghostbusters painted outside the firehouse. Go and find those places near. You don't have to travel for hours. 30 minutes outside, an hour, drive out of your driveway and pick a direction. And at every stop street, just pick the road less traveled for yourself until you find yourself somewhere you've never been before. Enjoy the moment and then go back. But do it with the social distancing, with the masks, all of that. But it gets you to find out something else about the environment in which you live. And I don't believe that international travel is going to be on the cards for a while yet. And I think it's a good thing for local tourist or travel destinations. Small town South Africa needs to rise again and come to the fore, because that's where the beauty of our country lies, is in those small towns. Hankie, Potensi, Humansdorp, all those tiny little places. Stunning.
Yes, and there's so much richness that you didn't know about. It's time to Google where you live. Like, okay, Lady Slipper is just outside. It was I've never been there, and I've lived here for years.
Yeah.
So why have I never been there? Interesting enough, there's things you'll never believe that are around the corner from you right now that you could, you know, take the kids or whatever and go and see. For example, there's this in the middle of PE, just behind the Opera House, down from the Phoenix Hotel. There's Queen Victoria statue there. You'll remember. There's the cross of Prester John, who is a little known figure. Well, I didn't know about him at all, having studied, you know, sort of Bible history and so forth fairly extensively. I didn't know about this guy. Portuguese figure of legend, apparently something like the original king, Christian king, or the only or first Christian king of a country in the Middle East. Or there's this legend, there's this whole story around Prester John. And apparently the only monument of its kind to him in the world is in PE. And I didn't know that, living here for 20 years.
Listen, I didn't know that, and I lived there for the first 28 years of my life. Where is the statue?
It's right near City Hall, right down in the middle of town. Just as you come right down what is now John Carney Road. We're right into the T junction, just in front of City Hall. There, it's right on the square there. Just sort of. Queen Victoria looks disdainfully upon you and it as you experience it, you know.
Just as a matter of interest, talking about that area, are people still able to climb the Campanile, or has that been closed?
No, it's closed as far as I know. Yeah, no, the Campanile, I think it's been closed for a while. They repaired the bells, though.
They repaired the bells, that I know. Because somewhere, I don't have it anymore, but I had a certificate for climbing to the top of the bell tower. 280 something steps.
Yes. No, look, as far as at this point in time, the closest I can come to that is on the Donkin Reserve, which is now Fugard Terrace. You know, if you pull in onto the Donkin Reserve there, the lighthouse there, you can climb the lighthouse. If I'm not mistaken, it's still open. Nowhere near as many steps, but you can see the bay from a whole new perspective, and the history there, and the tragic love story that's written on the pyramid, on the Donkin. You know, Rufane Donkin and his lost love, Elizabeth. You know, it's quite a fascinating thing. There's so many people I've met who go, you know, PE, it's named after Queen Elizabeth, obviously. Obviously.
Just as a matter of interest, and we're going to move on from here. But this is the beauty about this is the way I run these things. That's why it's called In Conversation. It's not an interview. Down the side of the Donkin was a series of houses that were renovated incorrectly, and then went into long litigation as to who, what, when, why, and where. Has that been resolved yet, or are they still at stalemate?
I think the ones you're talking about, it has been resolved. They're now offices and so forth, all down the sort of, we're facing the sea down the left-hand side there.
Correct.
It's all been, now, the hotel just behind that was on Belmont Terrace, I forget what it was called, was a beautiful hotel. Gosh, the name escapes me, is now boarded up under litigation, etc. So it seems like there's some ghosts of litigation haunting that area.
Because those homes, my parents looked at buying one of those in the 60s. It never happened. But the last time I was in Port Elizabeth, which was a couple of years ago, most of them had been painted nice bright colors, except one that that hadn't been painted, and it was almost a thumbing of the nose at the rest of them. And I don't know the story behind what happened to that one. I think it was the last one in the row, just before the post office, which is on the corner.
Yeah, I'll have a look. I haven't noticed it specifically, so maybe that it's been assimilated, you know. But there's just so much great artwork around that area, and the Route 67 walk that you can do up to the Donker now and everything.
Listen,
it's really
Port Elizabeth, I
beautiful.
keep saying this as a tourist and travel destination. Forget Durban, forget Cape Town. Go to Port Elizabeth. They've got stunning beaches.
Yes.
It's not windy. It's windy in the afternoon, so you go in the morning and then you go home in the afternoon. They've got fabulous people. They've got history coming out of their rear ends. Every street, every corner you turn, there's something else.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You know,
it's absolutely fascinating. It really is. If you, it's a city of 5 biomes as well. I mean, just in terms of diversity, natural diversity and beauty. You know, it's interesting. I was the other day chatting with someone. The Barkens Valley, which is being gentrified and developed, the area sort of along the Barkens River there, has been referred to as the upside down Table Mountain because of all these historical / natural wonders and things. It's incredible. There's so much to discover here. So if you haven't been here, I'd really recommend getting to Nelson Mandela Bay, as it's called.
Exactly.
I mean, the whole area is Nelson Mandela Bay.
The only stupid thing they did was break down Athol Fugard's home, which was in Barkens River.
That is not the only stupid thing that's been done here.
All right, let me rephrase that. One of the stupid things.
Let me finish that statement and say, I'm sure you have in your youth a litany of your own things, which have been done here.
We used to joke, Roland, that when the municipality in Port Elizabeth, and I'm talking back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s now, so if people go, oh, it's changed. Remember the decades I'm talking about, where they had nothing to do. They would just dig up a road. Just dig it up. And then they'd make a hole, and then they'd fill it up and then tar over it. And there was no rationale behind it other than to make work. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
It really was.
Well, look, it's all come full circle. I'll tell you how. It's come full circle in a completely non-political, non-council related way. And that is, the guys are installing fiber. So everywhere you look, someone's digging up a hole and recovering it, digging up a hole and recovering it. So the whole of town. So you'll feel right at home. I mean, your parents will feel right at home. Someone's digging up a road and recovering it as we speak, you know?
Yeah, they did that here in our suburb. They dig it up, put one cable in, fill it in. 6 weeks later, they've dug it up again. What are you doing? No, we're putting fiber in. But you put fiber in 6 weeks ago. Now, that was a different company. We've come to put another one. You know, you'd think if they all got together, I believe this is how they do it in Cape Town. There's a one trench policy. So if you miss the trench, sorry for you. But they only
see the trench of opportunity. So you must be prepared in life for the trench of opportunity. Otherwise, you missed
exactly it. So what keeps Roland busy at the moment?
Well, at the moment, radio as an essential service is ongoing. So I'm working with Algo FM on the drive in the afternoons. You can stream, by the way, algofm.co.za, if I'm allowed to just slip that in.
Of course you are.
You can stream in the afternoon of the week, and you'll be able to hear the show that we do throughout. So that's ongoing. And then the other thing which came by sort of accident as well to me is I've sort of dipped my 1 foot into your line of expertise, and that is writing in the form of copywriting.
You've taken over from Roy Williamson, haven't you?
Roy Williams, yes. Well, don't say it too loud. The shoes are massive.
Tell me about it. Roy is an institution in Port Elizabeth.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. He's incredible. So he's emigrated. He's living in the UK now.
Right.
He finally retired at the age of 71, and I don't think it was by choice. I think it was just opportunity that sort of came together. But what a guy, sure. And talk about richness of experience, stories, and vocabulary. I tell you. So
Yeah.
Anyway, he was sort of heading up copywriting for the station, and that actually all came together quite late last year that he actually ended up leaving. And so they sort of said, as a sort of stopgap measure in between, would you stand in and you know, consider, because I stood in for him for a week here or there if he'd been on leave, or you know, various people had, and I don't know if I was the only one who was silly enough to sort of go, sure, I'll give it a go, or if I just first one, or actually, you know, if there's a long list, 17, 18, 19, call Gaspar, see if he's ready, you know. Anyway, so the long and the short of it is that I now end up in a position where, yeah, I'm doing copywriting, which is an interesting departure from speaking, comedy, you know, etc., the construction of things and so forth, but it's still word arts, which is great. And I had been writing the strange ads. You know, I was the guy that would call for the weird ads. So, you know, if a client says, I want to advertise, I don't know, left-handed potato peelers that are operated by Bluetooth machinery.
You're the man.
And I want the ad to be incredibly serious or incredibly funny. Or someone phones and says, I have an accounting firm. We only do tax. And I want a hysterically funny ad, you know. Or the client goes, I have I don't know what, I sell wing nuts for, you know, juicers.
Make them
and I need somebody to write the best ad ever. And then then they'd go, oh, well, call Gaspar, he'll, you know. So started from that. And then, you know, just coming up with these strange concepts. Maybe it's the comedian's brain, you know, where you associate differently. But anyway, so I started from that and then got into the rest of it. And so now I find myself in this strange schizophrenic world where on the one hand, you're checking legal language, if you know what I mean. At the moment with legal requirements for certain industries. You know, certain industries, when they put an ad on the air, they're allowed to use certain words, but not others. It's actually quite crazy how intricate it can get. You know, you listen to the radio, you just hear the flow of information. You know, I call it the stream of consciousness. You just tune into that stream of consciousness and you just join in with it. But there is so much that goes into the craftsmanship of it. And then the other thing you get as well, by the way, and you'll appreciate this, number of words. You'll get someone who'll send you an ad and go, listen, this is a 30-second ad. It's 247 words long.
Cut it.
And you say, you know that 80 words is a 30-second ad? And they'll go, well, can you not just talk quicker?
It's like when you get to the end of, when you get to the end of those financial ads, and they have to do that, you know, so and so is a financial
registered financial services provider.
Exactly. And you've got about a second and a half to rattle that off, and it's got to be clear. You've got to be able to hear it. Roland, our time has been too short. And it's been an absolute blast talking to you. It really and truly has. And I'm hoping that somewhere down the line we can do this again, and we'll pick up where we've left off, and we'll sort of do part 2 of Roland and David.
Maybe then we can, you know, we can sort of drill down for some of those stories from your own PE.
There's it. This has been this has been In Conversation with, I'm David Batsoff, and he's Roland Gaspar. Roland, once again, thank you so very, very much for taking time out to chat to me. Take care.
Awesome. Loved it.
Yes.